guys, thought I wanted to do a little vid on the K31, the new one I got. Like I say, it's supposed to be an Arsenal fresh K31. It's true. At this point, I think I have about 55 rounds through it. But at any rate, after it's been shot some now, of course, as you know, I've had the rifle apart once to clean it, inspect it, put it back together, put it in the stock this way so that it becomes tuned properly. Just so you know, this K31s are, and I'll show you this, K31s are designed, they're not sloppily thought out or sloppily made. Let's put it that way. Unlike any other normal conventional bolt action rifle, the back edge of the receiver lug and the front edge of that part of the stock that it meets is your recoil lug on all other conventional turn bolt type rifles. The K31's recoil lug is at the back of the trigger housing. And the tang goes up over the top of the stock here, and that is your clamping force this way. So with this being, and then it's held tight, the barrel is held tight this much of the stock up front here, so they're holding it here, dampening it here. Then the only places on this stock that the rifle touches the stock is the bottom edge of the front recoil lug. None of the sides of the walls of that lug hit any part of the stock. And then you have your recoil lug back here, this back facing edge of the trigger housing. That's actually a recoil lug. They're putting the energy through solid wood instead of up here through the weak part of the stock that's been cut out like a conventional rifle would be doing. And then you have this part over the back here. This is your tang. And if you think about it, this is a lever. Here's your fulcrum right here, the front main screw. And back here is, and that's your ratio here. If you look, this ratio to this ratio compared to this, you've got a lever here. And so as this thing sits in the stock, you could obviously change the pressure up here at the front of the stock by just the very way it's maybe put in there, if it's done properly, just by tightening or loosening this rear screw a little bit maybe. When the armors built these things, they epoxy in a steel shim at the bottom of the front lug on the receiver. They get it in there, they determine how thick a shim they need, and they epoxy it in there so that this whole thing can be neutral, meaning that when they tighten this more, loosen it more, that it has effect. See, so that's what they do. These things, when they're made, they're shimmed up front at the bottom edge of the front main screw lug. Okay, I don't want to refer to it as a recoil lug because it is not. The recoil lug is back here, although being it's tightened to the stock itself at the bottom edge, that has some clamping force and some effect on that too. So at any rate, I just wanted to point that out. That's why this makes a K31 completely unique to really any other rifles that I can think of. See, but what I want to do today is I'm going to pull this handguard, and I want to measure how much preload I have now that this rifle's been shot, how much measured preload I have at the front of the barrel to the stock. Okay, I want to see how much we have there. It needs to have some. I suppose how much exactly should be up for debate after a thorough test was done of it in different other stages. And I'm going to need to pull off the front sight here. See, that's it. That's all there is to taking the front sight off of these. Right? This comes off and boom. Goes off and on like that. Alright, pull my... These things are ingeniously made. They really are. Pull my handguard. Yeah? Very nice piece of work right there, huh? Yep. And so this is what I want to test right now. And to do that, I'm using my handy dandy little RCBS trigger pull gauge. And so let's put you here. I'm going to hold the stock. Better get my glasses on, my reading glasses, so I can see what I'm doing here. And put that there. The gauge turned around the proper way. I'm going to say we're looking at about 32 ounce. Yeah. I'm going to say about 32 ounce. That's how much preload at the... Now theoretically I can take and change that a little bit by tightening up that rear screw. I could take a little bit out of that. Let's test that theory. Let's try you now, Ken. Oh yeah, I'm seeing 16 ounce. That little tiny bit I tightened it more on that rear screw went from 32 ounce to 16 ounce. Just one tiny little twist, just one tiny little twist on that rear screw, main screw, took 16 ounces off right there. Wow, I like that. I think we're going to leave it right like that. 16 ounce. Let's give it a whirl that way. Seen it here first, K31 tuning secrets. So I suppose it would only be fitting that we also go through putting it back together too. Now if you look at that thing, you see that right there? That spot from there to there is where, and you can see the marks on it, where that barrel is being clamped to the stock, and you'll find corresponding section like that on the bottom side of the stock too. So they intend this to be clamped, and of course it wants to be held firmly, not grossly tight. You know what I mean? You guys know what I mean. But it needs to be held firmly. There is no two ways about it. They need to be able, when they put these things together, be able to tighten that front band down to hold this securely, without, you know, just that spot. So at any rate, I thought maybe after I took it off might be a good idea to and then of course to show you how to put it back together. And of course I am seeing another thing I'm looking at right here, right now, which is a hard thing for you guys to see, I know. I'll see if I can show it. Do you see that spot right there? Huh? You see that spot right there? Right? Right there. That's the spot that is touching that barrel. And I am going to have to change that up a little bit. I don't want the barrel touching this. I don't want the barrel touching the handguard. Right? I only want it coming back here. It's touching this, the receiver handguard back here at this little place here that it catches in the receiver. See that? That little edge that latches up underneath over here. But I don't want that touching the barrel. See right there? All that right there. That's where that's touching the barrel. That's got to be cleaned out just a little bit. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to come back and go from there. and then we'll finish the thing on putting the handguard back on. So now what I'll do is I very lightly took a little bit, just clean that spot out there just a little bit as you see that. So my plan is this is how I'll do this. I'll take and I will put a little oil at the spot, questionable spot. Right? I need a lot, just enough to smear it. Okay? And of course I'll spread it around a little bit like that. And then we'll stick the handguard on again. Alright. And you want to make sure the bottom of the front band here is flush, firm. It sits in its saddle properly, and then you're tightening the top of the clamshell to it. See, and so now, see, and when I'm tightening you always tighten the front one first, and back here at the back where that tab goes underneath in the receiver, you might want to take and just ever so slightly, sometimes I'll tweak the corners of it just enough to make this thing fit in there just without any lateral side to side movement or anything. So it just, when you put it in there, it's tight to go. You know, in this case it goes underneath there, Connie, put it under. In this case you tap it in a little bit, it finds a home. Now the rear barrel band, I think, is a little bit of a dance, because as you see it there, you see that rear barrel band, how is it's going to come tight. You see how I've got some play in it that way, and so I'm going to continue to tighten it up a little more. I get a little less of that play, a little more, to where I'm almost, right now, I'm almost at I got just a tiny little bit. But as you tighten it up and you're finding that free play in there, you are centering the rear barrel band on the whole mess here. You're making it find a neutral spot, so to speak. And so I'm almost there. So I'm going to say that much right there. That should be 0. And it is almost. I got just still a tiny little bit left. And then of course you want to take it and just kind of make sure you're in that neutral spot. See, any looser I could actually get a little bit of movement out of it. Any tighter it would just be starting to clamp it down. So I call that neutral. And so what I'll do is I'll just give it like an 1/8 another turn on that screw. You see, and even that, because I can feel it as it's clamping it down, I can feel it wanting to squish this part of it together a little bit. So I'm going to call that good. I back that back off. I would leave it right there on this one. You got to make note of those fine little changes as you're tightening that up. But primarily what I want to see here, and I'm going to, on this particular case, I want to give it I want to tighten it up a little to where it probably was before. You see? But I want it to clamp down here so I can see if we're making contact with the barrel inside again. See, so anyways, that's my little technique for putting the barrel bands on. And so let's pull the handguard off and see if we can tell if it's if the handguard's making contact with the barrel at all. I don't see any there, right? I don't see any contact anywhere on that. Yeah, that's good. I'm going to call that good to go. Tiny little tweaks like that. Alright, so now that I got the clearance I want out of my handguard, right? Remember, I was making a little bit of contact there. I lightened up the preload on the barrel by about 16 ounces. And I actually took, and as I'm going to show you here, if you can see this, just ever so slightly, this one corner here on this, I just took it and gave it just a tiny little tweak because I wanted it to hold tight in there and push it to the center as much as possible. See, so now I've got it like that, and what's going to take is I needed to see how that just slid right in there? Lift it up a little bit, but now that seat's tight up there. Put rear barrel band on, slide it on, snap it over the lock. Seat the front one, make sure the bottom is seated. I'll even take and give it a tap in like that, little tapping Z. Get it on there, give it a little tap like that, get it nice and seated in its saddle there. And you tighten the top of it down to the bottom of it. You don't make the bottom chase the top clamshell to it. And you'll want it to be not gorilla tight, you know what I mean, but it needs to be so that you know that that thing is holding firm. And so it's just snug and then just a tweak more. Now, as I was telling you before, remember, I told you you were looking for the free play to take out all the free play in the barrel band. And as we work it, see, we're starting to get less and less. Okay, so you see right there? Can you see that? Getting down to almost nothing. And I remember the screw being straight up was at what I considered zero. Pretty much. Maybe just a touch more. I think absolute zero. So right now that barrel band is just kind of looser. I could be able to move it any tighter, and it's just kind of squishing it together. So I think that's where I want to leave it. I like that right there. So that's how I put the handguards back on it, guys. Firm hold up here. Rear barrel band all centered, not too tight, just centered, and then so there's zero play in it, just enough to hold it in place. And of course, you might want to take a look at the rear here to make sure this fits tight in the receiver, so it's not sloppy. And that's it. We're going to. I've cleaned it. I think it warrants another venture to the range. I'm working up some different loads I want to play with a little bit, so might be an interesting test to the range again. Talk to you later. Bye.